Alrighty. Welcome everybody to the Nexus Gaming series. Tonight we've got the free agent combine for a couple of hours. Joined by my good buddy here, Ziltoid. How you doing tonight?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
Happy as a clam. So it looks like the other teams finished up their match here just a few moments ago. Looks like all the teams are at least in their lobbies. They have 10 people in the two lobbies. So we should be able to get things started here relatively soon. So while I check in with them, why don't you talk a little bit about what we're doing here tonight?
So tonight is a free agent combine. The goal is to give a showcase of individual players that do not currently have a team set up for the next season of NGS. So we are going through a series of show matches on several channels, and with several opportunities for people to even try different roles and other things like that, to just kind of show their stuff and give them, make their case for being picked up by any of the teams or any of the recruiters out there that are looking to fill slots for their existing teams and or to build whole new ones. And to that matter, we have a mix of free agents that are looking to be picked up, recruiters that are looking to find hero or players, as well as some substitutes, just to make sure that we've got full 5-man squads on each side of the map for this show match. So I'm going to spend a bunch of time, a lot of these matches, trying to highlight into play and kind of give people a bit of a showcase so that it's a little easier for our recruiters to reach out to the members that they want to play with.
Great. Well, that's fantastic. This is a really complicated thing to get put together for basically 5 hours of double matches as we go through the evening. As you mentioned, there are a couple of different streams going on. I know Ragnarok and Bahamut are both streaming now. We've got like 2 or 3 streams, and then also people are doing their own streams as well for a POV stream. So lots of opportunities to see what's going on, how everybody performs tonight, how they perform in their role, so it's gonna be a fun time.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Got some big names in here too as well. Quite a few of accomplished players that are going to be playing tonight. Spoticus has been around for quite a long time. Kurama as well. Key 1108 is a fellow analyst on the analyst desk over at Nexus Edge. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. We can actually go down some of the roles we expect to see being played by several of these players here. So on Team 3, which will be on the blue side, we have Spoticus on tank, BigGE 6342, who should be playing the healer. Now, keep in mind, some of these can be swapped up for subs, so it just kind of depends on who actually shows up. Norrian is going to be picking up the solo. In fact, he was playing, I think, in the last game either or as a ranged DPS. So this is an example of a player looking to kind of show multiple roles. Say, here's my first and primary, my secondary role, and this is what you can recruit me for. And I really like some of the players doing that so that they can be give that variety to themselves so that they become easier to recruit.
Yeah, for sure. And there we go. So we've got 10 people in here now. So I'm interested to see how these folks perform tonight. There's been a lot of people paying attention to these, and of course all of this is going to be on the replay available on obviously the Nexus Gaming series page or Bahamut's page, Ragnarok's page, what have you. So let me make sure that these are correct. Teams.
Anyways, just to wrap up, team or the blue team, we had Randy Newman is going to be playing range DPS as well as Siege. Both of these are not free agents; they are recruiters and or substitutes. But the rest are. And then on the other side, we have Kurama's going to be unranged. Idioms is actually going to be playing solo. Key is back on the healer. Amiona, I believe, is the second ranged DPS. And that'll leave Michael, I believe, for the tank role.
So we're going into draft here. We're on Cursed Hollow for this first game. And so, you know, I do expect that for the most part we'll see a lot of standard stuff. That being said, you know, some players are very good at unique heroes, whether that's Samuro or, I don't know, Diva, who knows? Somebody out there probably likes a Diva. And so we may actually see some of these players like showcasing the things that they're very comfortable on.
Yeah, I expect either whether they're meta or not meta, we'll probably be seeing the strongest heroes that each individual person feels like they are best at, assuming they don't get banned out. Bans is kind of an interesting phase because it might remove some of these players' top heroes, which is a good and a bad thing. You don't necessarily want to reveal everything, but you know, definitely are trying to showcase your best foot forward. So we'll see what we get.
Yeah, and we're seeing some pretty standard bans for Cursed Hollow here. And it's also important to keep in mind that these are a variety of skill levels, too. You may see some people from Div D as well as some people from Div A, or at least of those equivalent skill levels. So, who was it? Michael, I think, was with Bugin Squad, which was a Div D team. But then you've got some of these players who are master players. So...
I mean, it's not rare, all that rare to see master players on Div D teams if the rest of their team are all silver. So it does kind of, you know, even in NGS, you get a bit of that skill disparity on specific teams. But the thing about team play is that generally you develop as a team and it becomes kind of its own thing. Individual only contributes so much to it. And so this is going to be one of those rare instances where we're really going to be focusing on how, you know, well each player kind of fulfills the role in which they're currently assigned.
Yeah, so tonight what we're going to do here is while we've got fights and challenging stuff going on, I'll be giving you a little bit of the taste of what the teams are doing at a high level and the micro of those fights. And maybe while they're taking camps or figuring out which talent to pick, Ziltoid's going to be providing a little bit more individual feedback of, you know, maybe specific talent builds and choices, you know, pointing out some specific plays that these players are doing really well. And we're going to try to remember to highlight those far off solo laners a little bit to make sure that they're not left in the cold tonight.
Yeah, we definitely need to make sure the camera pops up there a little more frequently than it maybe does in a regular cast.
Yeah, for sure. So just shouting out my buddy Arcane in chat. Always good to see you. Glad that you could join us on your multi-stream. If you guys aren't aware, check the Discord hype that Arcane put up. You can actually watch all of the different streams at the same time, assuming your computer can handle it, of course. And your connection.
So Maiev is a bold pick, I think, on the side of the red team. As, you know, quite often Maiev is dictated much by how well the team itself actually plays around the hero. Not necessarily the individual in that sense. But a really good Maiev player can still make that big individual impact that we might see. So I'm going to be watching out for Amiona on that hero quite a bit this match, for sure.
Well, and they've got a very heavy front line there with the Diablo Leoric. You've got the APOC to help out with the Warden's Cage, the Entomb, and then you've got a Silence coming out of Stukov. So even somebody like a Li Ming who can teleport out, or Garrosh can, you know, into the fray out of the cage, or even Indomitable to clear a path, that's going to become much more difficult when there's an Entomb wall or a Silence down to prevent you from doing that.
Certainly. Garrosh is a bold move. It's definitely one of those heroes that has been suffering in the win rate department. A lot of heroes, but it is good into Diablo, and it's actually nice to see a matchup like this because this is kind of the traditional. We drafted Diablo, you drafted Garrosh to somewhat counter it. So can you pull off the counter with that pick? And if you can, that's going to be a pretty big statement for, on the tank side of things between these two players.
Not only that, but with the Maiev on the other side, whether it's taunt or, as we just saw in Bahamut's game, they may even go decimate. But the Maiev looking to kind of get out of position in some cases to set up those Warden's cages or those tethers, and Garrosh can help to prevent that with a throw or a taunt. So let me introduce the blue team here real quick. We've got Spoticus on Garrosh. We've got BigGE on Ana. Sheej is going to be playing the Rainer. Norrian on Dahaka. And Randy Newman on Li Ming.
And on the red side, we've got Idioms playing the Leoric. We have Key, 1108 on his signature, Stukov, Michael playing Diablo, Amiona on the Maiev, and Kurama on Sylvanas. Now, I'm going to be watching Sylvanas quite closely, as this is definitely a hero that I myself like to play quite a bit. We are going to get Dagger builds, so the goal behind Dagger build is to be able to burn down targets. So what I'm really going to be looking for is nice coordinated damage onto specific targets that they're looking to blow up in a very short period of time. And a lot is going to be on Kurama's kind of shoulders here in this matchup to get a lot done, as everything else is kind of supplemental damage. There's not like a big secondary main damage dealer here to help him out.
So we do also see that Rainer took Veteran Marksman for that stacking quest on his Give Him Some Pepper. And also, take a look at that Stukov talent. I don't even know what that does, because I don't think I've ever seen it. Instantly spread a weighted pustule to all nearby enemy heroes. So that's okay. All right, interesting.
It's the thing about Stukov is he does need to get, if he's doing his auto attacks and he wants to be aggressive with, he kind of has to step up, and it's always a risk with Stukov, as his mobility is his biggest downfall. But with a talent like that, if you're expecting dive every time you step up, you might be able to survive a good push on it. And we're going to see a throw, nice rotation from Spoticus.
Yeah,
down into that bot lane there.
Pretty much exactly what I was talking about right at the beginning, was about the quote-unquote counter to the Maiev. That obviously wasn't the circumstance for it, but it set it up for it. So we'll see if that continues through the rest of the game here, as Garrosh really starting it off.
Really was good map awareness, though. He definitely saw an opportunity to get a good gank and didn't hesitate on it, and it definitely converted pretty well into the first kill of the game. And we have Sylvanas up here getting the first camp with the Stukov. It's a pretty, good rotation there, making sure that you're cycling these out pretty quickly, especially if we get Mercenary Queen. This could actually have a significant amount of value, as really the blue team lacks a significant amount of wave clear early, and that could be problematic for clearing up camps like this without a full rotation.
So they did take possession.
Yeah.
And we do have the giant camps, of course, going in the top and bot lane. Li Ming taking the cooldown reduction on orbs as opposed to the dominance heals. So putting a little bit more reliance onto Ana.
Yeah, looking for that long-range poke. Norrian up here was actually winning really well against Idioms, but he kind of overextended, and he didn't spot that rotation coming in. And Michael Kurama making a very good play in the top lane, making sure they pick off that Dahaka. So now they don't have that kind of global threat.
Yeah, but they are already back up now.
It's true. And that rotation's slow.
Yeah, they throw that Stukov in, get the stun, and so it's a free kill for them, as the 3 players from the red team are a little bit behind because of that Dahaka kill. So net result, they traded positively. They both teams got a kill, and they got the tribute there. So I did want to mention, though, down here that Garrosh Spoticus had rotated down onto the Maiev, and it's a minor thing, but using Vault of the Wardens at the right time to position yourself so that you don't get thrown you know, makes the difference between whether you live or die there.
Absolutely.
And they're looking to set up this bush, and there it is right there onto the Maya. She does use her blink ability, shadow blink or something like that to get out of that.
Yeah, definitely quick fingers to avoid it, but it does kind of make this rotation a little risky now for the side of the red team to actually get in here onto that tribute, and they are going to have to give it up again. Again, the Garrosh is doing a really good job making sure he's hiding in bushes, finding those opportunities to get really good throws in onto targets. Maya probably could have avoided that by throwing in her own Spirit of Vengeance into the bush and kind of avoided being thrown in the first place, but you know, he still had it up when he got thrown, and there wasn't really any follow-up CC to finish him off, so he was able to get out.
Yeah, they were all pretty far away. So getting back onto these camps, Sylvanas has got hers. Blue team has their Bruiser camp, and it looks like they're going to head up and probably get their Giant camp as well. So we've got Dahaka and Diablo in the bot lane here, trying to offset the Leoric going up in the top lane. And this time they're rotating up a little bit sooner too. They want to be there first. They don't want to let Garrosh set up for that gank.
Early curses don't always do the most amount of damage. Sometimes even if you're like playing something like an Abathur comp, you can get away with allowing them to happen as long as you've prepped the rest of your lanes pretty good. With the camp pushing though in the middle, it's a little risky to give this up for sure. Yeah. You might as well, you know, they're the ones with the Haka, so the longer that it stalls out, the better it does for the blue team.
Well, there's Dahaka coming into the group, and the Honor Grenade negates any healing onto Diablo there, but it's Sylvanas that's in trouble there with Dahaka on the backline. Michael going very low, trying to walk away here as Norrian gets a tongue, I believe, on him, and gets taken out there. Maiev, though, on the other side, will also go down, and Raynor will finish the job there on Diablo. These resets coming out from Ming, though, just doing so much damage, getting those large orbs and the missiles, which will ultimately net them a 3-for-1 and a curse.
The front line put a ton of pressure onto the backliners of the red team, and Sylvanas, who's only sitting at 7 of the dagger stacks, is a pretty good kind of example of how much pressure is being applied, as she has no time to really sit down and get those auto attacks in to get those stacks up. So 7 stacks, you know, 6 minutes and 40 seconds into the game is not the position you necessarily want to be in when you're taking that level of talent.
Yeah, and we just saw, you know, Idioms there got a little bit forward, and Garrosh threw him into the team and tried to get out, but with that healing negation coming out from Ana, ultimately the same story coming out for Diablo, as Maev's getting a lot of Phantom Knives resets, but Ana's just keeping them up.
And that's that finishing power that you know was really going to be on the shoulders of the Sylvanas here in a lot of these fights. Amiona can definitely get the engagements in, and she does a pretty good job there, actually finding the Raynor, and the follow-up damage actually came out from Michael, as they didn't really have access to anything else at that moment.
Yeah, getting that lightning breath into that Entomb was pretty solid, and the rest of the team had to pull back once Raynor went down too. So they lose the top fort, the mid fort, they lose all that wall, and there's a fair amount of XP there for them to get. Kurama was able to, you know, prevent any significant damage down in the bot, but is also very low and can't really get too close here, because if Kurama gets in range of Norrian, that's a dead Sylvanas.
Yeah, that's pretty much the situation you don't want to be in a comp like this, where your main DPS backliner is kind of stuck off in the off lane trying to deal with the Dahaka.
Yeah, and
hopefully they can get that readjusted. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the quest stacks from Sylvanas. I mean, you know, Raynor's doing probably pretty decently with the give him some pepper, 25 stacks, 11 stacks out of Garrosh. Of course, he's been able to get a lot of picks, so he's a little bit ahead of the Sylvanas stacks there. But you know, the reality of it is that these teams haven't had long team fights. You know, the tributes have come up and they've been fairly quick, except for that last one, which ended up in obviously 3 kills. So they've got to have a little bit more team fighting value here to really stack those quest talents up for the late game.
Absolutely. Leoric does manage to scout this out, doing a good job of using his, mount and to make sure he gets in there and spots out what's going on. So that is going to be the second boss actually taking blue team. And, they're just kind of on Cursed Hollow. This is how this sometimes gets. You get a nice kind of dominating lead, and if you manipulate the map properly, you can just kind of continue to extend that lead further and further, kind of removing all of the major win conditions off the map. And we're seeing the blue team do a really good job of this. And again, a lot of these rotations are being started and well protected by Spoticus, and his positioning is always on a good point for his team, and making sure that there's no angles that the enemy team is getting any type of immediate damage or kind of flanking or any pressure onto his backline.
Yeah, and they're making the best of every moment here too, right? They use Ana to get the tribute. They've got Raynor and Li Ming getting the camp. Garrosh is covering. Dahaka is soaking. All of blue team is doing something that's moving their objective forward. And the red team right now has had to just play goalie, right? They have to just keep things away from their keep, that boss, getting it down about a third. And they had to have every man on deck to make that a reality. And now they're going to have a mid camp and Giants going in the top lane. And if
there's not dire... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if they go after this tribute, by the time they get down there, if it's a prolonged fight, they lose top keep to those Giants. So I think they have to just give it.
Yeah, it's not dire straits here at this moment. They're only a level behind. They can clear this up, and this next tribute does not get the curse. So now they're going to actually force Dahaka to make a decision whether he's going to grab the tribute or if he's going to come in here for the fight. And that is the best initiation that we've seen from the red team yet. They realized that Dahaka was going to be split, grabbing that tribute, and he used that moment to actually pull the trigger. And when they still have 3 keeps up, and with that team fight win, their experience is now back pretty much even for the rest, and that's a good position for them to be able to start mounting a bit of a comeback here into this game.
Yeah, for sure. They can clear up these camps. They can push their lanes back a little bit here, at least. And the next tribute is on their side, but it's at that same location that the other fight was, too. So all of blue team are going to be back up for this. They don't have to go there, but there's not really anything else on the map for them to do. So it just depends. If they're feeling confident, those ultimates are back down for red, so they at least at the initiation of the fight, they have the advantage. It looks like they're gonna go ahead and put the pressure on this.
Yeah, that last fight was actually initiated really well by Emiona and Key. In fact, Key getting a big silence, I think, is one of the major factors they were able to get so many kills off in that fight.
Yeah, right now this is favoring the red team because their ultimates are coming back up.
Certainly.
So stalling it out. And here comes Leoric trying to get the damage reduction from his Wraith Walk. They throw Diablo back into the back there. Right now they get the Entomb onto Li Ming, but no value. 3 people get taunted, and here comes Dahaka. Kurama has to back away. The Warden's Cage is all up in the front. The Fan of Knife resets just going nuts, though, as Kurama now has 100 health. 2 dead, and Dahaka's going to make it 3. So a little bit of that hesitation ends up costing them 3 deaths to nothing.
Earlier on in the match, like I was saying, we were seeing the red team struggle as so much pressure was being put on by both frontliners, the Dahaka and the Garrosh. Unfortunately, in that fight, though, the Dahaka took a little too long to make that rotation, and the initiation came out from Amiona, Michael, and that was and the Leoric. And that's more or less kind of what put them in a bad position. The Dahaka came in a little bit late, but by that time they were already caught in the Warden's Cage. Very good timing on the engagement there. Yet again, for the second time in a row by the red team. And again, Amiona definitely getting good value on this Maiev here in the mid-late game.
So we did see Diablo get caught out there, thrown over the wall, and they couldn't quite get the wall down quickly enough to save him. But he's Diablo, so they lost the souls, but he's back on the table here. But here's blue. Timer's up. Boss is up. They have no need to rush up to that tribute. And now this is going into a keep for the red team. And Dahaka's going to go ahead and push that back out there in the bottom, too.
They don't want to sacrifice another curse. But, you know, so they're going to have to make a decision here. Do you just take the fight and sacrifice the keep to secure the second curse here, or the second tribute? And maybe pick off enough heroes themselves and then get their own boss. But we'll see kind of how this goes out. But Michael is already really low, but he gets a wonderful engagement out to Li Ming. That play was just fantastic.
Yeah, right onto the nano boosted Li Ming, no less, and he's got to back away. Michael does because of the contagion there. Norrian burrows away, but they get him coming up here. Once again, that engage that we talked about, just solid.
And that one was almost 100% initiated by Michael on the Diablo. He's been doing it a lot in the mid late game fights here. But that one was a very good example of just a beautiful play. He was able to get the first initial slam. It gets the wall onto the Li Ming, flips, gets another slam into the Leorican Tomb, and then the Warden's Cage came out right after that. So the initiation with the Lightning Breath and the Warden's Cage has been really on point. And the follow-up from Amiona from Michael's engages has been just fantastic as well in their mid-late game.
I want to point out, too, that, you know, Leoric, the last couple of times here, has been really good about getting that damage reduction out onto the big DPS. Like, in that circumstance, Michael was able to take out Li Ming, quite probably because Leoric had negated so much of her damage. Because otherwise, Michael got really low, and without that, what is it, 40% damage reduction, 50% damage reduction? Like, Michael might have been just a stain.
Yeah, that was 50. It's 50%. It's actually quite significant, and you know, that's a sign of a good Leo player who really knows how to, one, position their body so that they don't take a bunch of return damage while they're ghosting on top of the enemy team's DPS, and two, just making sure that they get, you know, that they're pathing very well and hitting all of the necessary targets to get it done. If you're seeing a Leoric do that, then you know it's someone who's feeling very comfortable on the hero. And that gamble paid off. They still managed to save the bot keep, though just barely. They won a major team fight, got that top boss, pushed it down, and managed to get Curse. Now, the lanes weren't pushed out as far as you would have liked to see on a Curse, and I do think that they had a bit of time to maybe delay that out a bit. But again, we're not really here to analyze all of the optimum shot calls or anything like that. These are kind of 5 random people being thrown together to play, so
yeah, pretty close.
We don't want to get too critical on some of those plays, but I've been liking what I've been seeing on a lot of the initiations, a lot of team fight. The Leo play has been solid. The Dahaka play has been really solid. He's been playing a fantastic away game. I think his digs need to be timed a little bit better, but overall his ability to kind of pressure these lanes macro wise has been quite good.
Well, and I want to point out, so 2 things that they got out of this curse. The mid lane there, they take that mid fort, and then they walk away. They do have level 20s now, but they walked away, and you saw Blue was sitting there at the wall. Garrosh was waiting for anybody to just get close enough to throw, and they die. But instead, they go to the bot lane, and they get that keep. And the other thing that they did at that bot keep that Leo did there was he used his Wraith Walk to check that exact issue. He went through the wall to make sure that there was nobody there, even though a big percentage of them were showing up top, to make sure that there wasn't anybody there to cause any issues. So, you know, these are some really valuable, interesting plays that you don't see all the time. And Leo now could be in trouble, but he's a hard hero to gank. Yeah, and he did have the vision, so yeah. I think, anyways.
Yeah, they just captured this on the rotation end. So.
The Hellgate into the fray out. Or no, that wasn't into the fray. That was Wrecking Ball.
Yeah, he just threw it with Wrecking Ball. But Spoticus is still in a bit of a problem. And in fact, with all this coordinated pressure is going to go down, and that Silence Tomb was just fast.
Oh,
that is what we call the easy bake oven, my friends. That was pretty much a textbook example of it. And red team really came back in this game. I mean, with those 3 kills, I'm pretty sure they can just walk to the other side of the map and win in the bot lane.
Yeah, and they've got Leoric, Maiev, and Diablo doing that. Sylv and Stukov electing to try to stall the death of that keep down there. So this could actually be a problem. It might make it difficult for them to.
They really need their
right
DPS here,
Yeah.
but it looks like the call has actually been made, so they're all making the rotation up. So Michael and Idioms taking a lot of damage. Amiona is really low now.
Yeah, and they don't have
So
the
I
healer
think-
yet.
But the thing about Stukov is he does have a pretty nasty big burst heal, so it might just be enough. And that Silence and Tomb is going to get another pick onto the Dahaka here, and I think that will be the end of the game here.
Yeah, it's looking pretty likely there. So maybe, again, let's mention that this was, 5 randoms. So the shot calling of, making that core call, just like in your Storm League games, sometimes people don't come, right?
Yeah.
But they did do really well coordinating their ultimates and identifying, like you said, with Michael, okay, we're starting this, going into that shadow charge, and getting the stuns, getting the Warden's Cage and the Entomb to follow up on that to make sure that they can't get out of it. So that was really good coordination from them. And in the early game, I mean, you did see like Spoticus, he anchored well for the team. He did a fantastic job of making sure that they had presence and had a nice solid front wall for his team to be able to hide behind, basically. And the grenades from Ana were fantastic, like really helped that early game to be in their favor. I'm going to check in with the teams here on our next map, so why don't you go ahead and highlight some other stuff?
Certainly. Yeah, I think from the blue team, what we saw was very decent play. As far as the macro from the Dahaka, though the digs and maybe even the isolations and stuff like that could have been timed and aimed a bit better. Ana was making a lot of really good plays with those healing grenades. And Garrosh was doing a pretty solid job of making sure that he was finding those areas to ward really well and maybe even get those picks. And the follow-up damage was decent. But the problem really kind of came into the mid-late game. We started seeing some fantastic plays just coming out from mainly the frontline kind of that we had, which was Diablo, Leoric, and Maiev, who were all doing a very good job of making sure that their heroics were getting maximum value into the mid-late game. And we saw just about 3 or 4 just great entombs. We saw some fantastic lightning breath follow-up, as well as good initiation off the Diablo. And we saw Amiona doing the same thing. Whenever the Diablo was getting a good pick target, there was no hesitance. It was just a really good engagement follow-up with the immediate tether into a Warden's Cage, and it catches them all into the center. Solid play from both sides of the map, and from all the players themselves. Key had some really good silences, especially early, and the Sylvanas still was able to get those kills in those situations where they were able to isolate targets, and that's where we started to see Garrosh actually start to struggle. Was when those dagger stack started to get a little bit up, and the burst damage was coming in pretty hard on top of them.
Well, and later in the game too, Garrosh, that kind of forward movement of being so far in advance of his team ended up kind of being counterproductive, because it meant that he was on an island, and like you mentioned earlier, with the Dahaka being sometimes a little bit late to where you wanted them to be, made it difficult for Garrosh to do what he wanted to do, which is grab that pick and make that play happen.
I think he was playing the hero properly. I think it's one of those things where when you don't have a coordinated team that's used to playing around a Garrosh, they aren't necessarily positioned where they need to be able to follow up with the Garrosh, because he definitely wants to be warding. He definitely wants to be looking for those pick opportunities and things like that. I think I really was impressed with the Garrosh play. I think he played about as good a game as you could expect in that type of situation. I think there was just just kind of those issues with not being an actual 5-stack in communication that really kind of cost him a bit in those situations. But in more than that, it was just some really good plays coming out from, Michael and Amiona and Idioms for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good game. I enjoyed watching it. The teams played well. I think they're set. Let me just get confirmation here.
Yeah, this looks like the appropriate teams.
Okay, so we're going to Alterac Pass, which is another map where there's a clearly defined objective, and there's going to be a lot of team fights built around that objective. So I expect that we'll get a lot more highlighting around that team fight because of this. Looks like both teams are ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and start us up.
I do think that good macro play on this map is a big defining factor. The objective can't be ignored. It is very Volskaya-ish in that sense, but it can be delayed. And there are ways that because the map inherently forces you to go to your enemy side of the map to be able to channel the objective, it's usually only wise to do so when you have a significant advantage. And to get that advantage, quite often you have to do it in one of two ways. You have to find a gank or a pick prior to the objective coming out, or you need to create pressure that draws the enemy team out of position somewhere else on the map, which you can do with bosses, you can do with the mid camp, or you can do with just generally good siege and laning capability. The macro on this map, any team that's really good at maximizing the value out of it quite often gets ahead when it comes to the objectives, but you still have got to win those team fights.
Yeah, for sure. So we're seeing a little bit of a different start here to the bans. We did see, of course, Abathur last game, so I kind of expect to see a Zeratul ban anyways. But instead of the Anduin and Johanna that we started with before, we're getting Junkrat. And Junkrat has just crazy amounts of poke, which makes it difficult to channel even if you're down a hero on this map. And it's a big map, so he also has really good lane rotation. So he's got delay, he's got wave clear, and he's got lane rotation, which makes him just an absolute threat on this map. So I'm kind of hoping that we'll see like completely different drafts, that we won't see necessarily the same heroes on the, same people on the same heroes, to flex a little bit, see what they can do, show us their flexibility in different draft styles, but also, of course, heroes, right? I mean, I would like to see maybe even like a Stitches from somebody. We're going to see the Ana again, but that's okay. I mean, if it's your, maybe this is, hey, take the time to play your best hero, right? And if Ana's your best hero, then and Ana's a great hero, then that's the way you go.
Yeah, if it's going to showcase you at your best, then why not? And we see that the red team agrees with me that Garrosh was a problem that last match.
Yeah, for sure.
They went ahead and took care of it right off the bat. But we're going to get a pretty good opening with Anubrak and Anduin. And the things about these two picks is Anubrak is a very strong, powerful tank, very good for great dive, isolation. He's just got all the tools in the kit that you want on a tank. But he's a touchy hero, so it really is one of those ones, just like Diablo, that if not played optimally, can be quite a bit of a liability sometimes on the team. And Anduin is kind of the same thing in my opinion. I think he's a high skill cap hero, and so kind of whipping out the Anduin here is a nice statement by Key, trying to say, hey, look, I can master hero like this. What else do you think I can do?
Yeah, and so we're going to see more Li Ming. And I expect, Anduin's Holy Word Sanctuary is... I like it. I like taking it. I like using it. It's a lot like Mosh Pit in that you have to be aware of the enemy's counters. It can... Even just taking Anduin can kind of give that... Well, let's focus on taking ways to counter that Sanctuary, because it's huge. It's 3 seconds and I think 25% healing. and it's a large radius. So just having that as a potential on the enemy team means you have to draft counters. But then with an Anduin and Nubrak, you can go straight into Light Bomb.
I was just about to say that. I'm like, but with the Nubrak, who wouldn't want Light Bomb? It protects him on his dive. He gets a giant AoE stun. I mean, already to follow up the giant AoE stun that he gens to hit if he lands on more than 2 people with his burrow. So it is a very good pairing that I definitely like to see.
Yeah, and with the Blaze, I think they're kind of doubling down on that idea as well, because now you've got 2 potential group stuns, some dive stuns. You've got the value potential coming out from an Orphea, either ult, really. I mean, if you get a Blaze stun into a Light Bomb, I mean, Eternal Feast is going to get huge value. Or you just combo it into Crushing Jaws and get more stun time and all of the proc bonuses.
So, Kurama definitely coming out today looking to make a statement on his damage dealer heroes. Sylvanas is a strong hero, but still takes a bit of good practice to really weave in her auto attacks well and get maximum value out of all of the abilities on her kit. Orphea is another one of these very high skill cap heroes that takes quite a bit of time to master, but if you do, she can be a super impact on a lot of fights. We see actually a lot of really high skill DPS in this matchup.
Yeah, and we saw the Maiev now going over to Kerrigan. So again, this is going to be, there's a lot of stun potential coming out of the red team. For the blue team, you've got Roots, you've got the Dragon Arrow from Hanzo, you've got the Condemn and Blessed Shield. So there's a lot of potential like setting up for plays, some big plays here, or even and honestly, like any of that to kind of initiate. So both of these teams have a lot of potential to get the job done.
There is definitely a lot of stun lock, though, on the side of the red team here. I mean, everybody's got some form of CC.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at these 2 teams and trying to make a decision on who I think is more likely to win, I mean, I have to give it to the red team. But let me introduce blue here. So we got Randy Newman coming in on Hanzo, Sheej on the Li Ming, Norrian on Thrall, BigGE on Ana, and bringing it up on Johanna is going to be Spoticus.
And on the red side, we've got Amiona on the Kerrigan, Key 1108 on the Anduin, Kurama playing Orphea, Michael on the Nubrak, and Idioms on the Blaze.
So I expect to see like a Thrall versus Blaze, but I don't know like what we'll see in the mid bot or the mid top group. Are we gonna see like 4-1, or are we gonna see 1-1-3, or?
This is a tough map to actually pull off a mid bot rotation. Generally speaking, that's due to these mud pits. They slow down rotations pretty rough, actually. When you got to walk through it, clear the wave, and walk back up, it really takes precious time off. So I tend to be a pretty big favor of a 1-3-1 split. That way, you also have 1 or 2 heroes in the mid lane that can kind of split off to go get those early camps that come up in 3 seconds now, and kind of get those cycling nice and early, because the sooner you get those out, you can get another one in before the next objective comes out, and you can get 2 camps out in the mid lane. These camps can be devastating with a 20 armor reduction on structures. And we can see the blue team is already right on that. Now, Li Ming Ana is not the fastest clear in the world, so might take them a little while to actually get this out. And we see red is also doing the same on the other side.
Yeah, we'll come back in and check on the blue team on their camp in about 12 minutes when they're done here. So we've got Hanzo versus Orphea in the bot lane, and right now Hanzo's a little bit ahead, which I don't know. I feel like that kind of surprises me pre-4 anyways, before Hanzo gets his explosive arrows.
Yeah, without explosive arrows, Orphea does have the wave clear advantage. With that said, though, she does have longer cooldowns on her abilities, and the fact of the matter is Hanzo can get those long-range auto attacks in. So Orphea does have to, kind of play outside of his range a bit. And then she's got to decide if she's going to land those wave clear abilities onto him to put pressure onto it, or if she's just going to use it to wave clear.
So it's just because he's the newest hero in the Nexus here, I wanted to point out the talents that we've got coming out from Anduin. So we do have the Renew. So when you auto attack, you get an extra heal on your next flash of light? Flash heal, that's what it is. Flash of light's Uther, and then Moral Compass. So at the end of your Divine Star, there are 2 auto attacks that go out, and that helps you to proc that Renew and get extra damage. It also means that your Divine Star kind of gets a little bit more range because they're a little bit beyond the end of the Divine Star, so a little bit more value in like interrupting the camps.
Certainly. And I don't know if you've been watching, but Thrall and Blaze have just been duking it out in the top lane.
I just came up here a few moments before you said that, so
just smashing each other in the face over and over again. And it's quite. I think Thrall comes out on top of that because he can heal up a little bit faster, and he didn't lose as much on the mana side. And that's actually going to be the rough part about being aggressive here on to blue side of the map, without Blaze having any of that disengage potential because he has no oil. And we could see Idioms realizing where he's sitting mana-wise and says, hey, I better back out. And that's the thing. It's always a risky business for either team to be aggressive on the opponent's side of the map without an advantage. So you can take these moments to kind of get other advantages on the map. You can have 1 or 2 members stall out. You can even give up a little bit of a channel for some of that macro advantage because you have so many positions in which you can actually flank in onto the enemy team.
Yeah, and right now red and blue here, we've got blue coming in as red is working on their camp. They're able to just barely stall that out, and it looks like Norrian on the Thrall there is a little bit too far in, and it will be first blood there. But they do get the channel, so they've got to pay attention to this. Randy Newman also in trouble, but so many people on the red team are very low, and they don't have that Stukov spreading heal. Anduin does not have that same big burst heal potential as Kerrigan will finish off the Ana.
I'm going to shout out again for the second time in this match. Idioms and Michael just making some just fantastic plays. Like, they stalled out that objective for literally 20 seconds without dying against a 5-man squad with 2 heroes. It is pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
A really good job just dodging all of the major things. They made sure they didn't get locked down or stunned down long enough to get bursted by any of the heroes. And into 5 different heroes, just stalling it out like that long enough to be able to get the channel in is just an impressive piece of work. And I think that they definitely deserve those follow-up kills that they managed to get.
So blue is looking to get this channel. They do get it. Blaze just barely outside of the range. However, the stun's going out onto Johanna, the chomp coming from Kurama to try to get that shield broken down, that Iron Skin. And they're going to retreat back to their prison camp here. They've got a couple of minions here to help defend them, as Anduin's going to look to go tap and get back into this as quickly as he can. So
that was a fantastic disengage. Yeah, it was a fantastic disengage by the red team here. He actually, I didn't think even needed to burn his trait to get anyone out of a bad situation. Now, they are pretty low, and it looks like the blue team's looking to try to leverage that advantage to get a channel in on their own. And they might be able to do it, as these frontliners don't have the health bars really to continue to stall this out. But he's going to go in anyways, as they caught out the Raynor a bit, or sorry, the Hanzo a bit. But the counter damage was too much, and they do manage to actually pick off the Nubarak.
Yeah, and Blaze is very low as well, so these guys are trying to channel this to slow things down, but they don't have anybody with any kind of health pool that can really do anything about it. So they're going to get the root onto Orphea, and they're going to pay for it with another death. I think that at that point, they probably should have just backed away. You don't have anybody with a beefy health pool, and stalling it out doesn't really get you anything.
Yeah, Norrian and BigGE doing a good job getting that sleep into root combo there that kind of led into that Orphea kill. And the blue team was really able to capitalize on the fact that while that was a good disengage from red, they didn't really have anything left in the tank. They had no mana. Their frontlanders had no health. And they leveraged that to gain an advantage, and red kind of sticking around was a bonus. So despite some really good plays from the red team, a little bit of a misplay there cost them the objective, and we're going to see a slight advantage here for the side of the...
Yeah, and at the start here, they started with all 5 of them up in the top lane. They get that pressure on the top, of course, top being a boss lane. The bosses here don't seem to have quite as much value as some of the other maps, like Cursed Hollow, for example. But it still is value. When you get into the latter stages of the game and the core doesn't have as much armor because those keeps are down, a boss can help you finish off when there's a 20 armor and basically negate that benefit.
Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse of Cursed Hollow, where in Cursed Hollow, the bosses are kind of your major win condition, with the objective kind of being a supplemental. I think Alterac is very much the other way, where the bosses are often just quite supplemental, and the objective itself is kind of your major win condition in most situations.
Yeah, and of course the objective provides that extra damage and movement speed and healing, so Idioms down there was checking that boss just to make sure that the blue team was not there, but of course they were at the top boss.
And this, if it's well supported, these bosses can still get some value for sure, but we will see a 4-man rotation here from the red team, and we'll see what plays they can make here. You can probably leave the boss to kind of do a bit of damage onto the pressure, go behind it, and kind of put the damage onto the rest of the team.
I mean, you see Blaze coming in here, so now it's going to be a 5v4 as the Cocoon goes out onto Johanna, but it's melted away by the Disintegrate. Burrow Charge going out. The Crushing Jaws onto Ana, and there's a huge amount of damage coming out from that combustion. And Ana's going to go down. Spoticus is in a little bit of an awkward spot, but nobody's really chasing him down. They're going after Sheej, trying to get this Li Ming. 7 health, and Kerrigan will poke Li Ming for that final death.
So, I mean, this gets some pretty significant damage onto the top keep. But again, as we kind of discussed, you can kind of lose a keep on this map. And it generally doesn't spell nearly as much doom as it can be on other maps if the lane's not as well maintained, because the core really defends itself and it heals. So you do have at least those saving graces for it. So taking that fight, it's kind of like we saw in game 1. The initiation comes in from Michael. The Cocoon didn't last long, but it did what it needed to do, which was give them a window to be able to pop their cooldowns onto the backline. And they were able to pick off the DPS and kind of continue that with some really fantastic follow-up from Kurama and Amiona yet again, as we were seeing a lot of the time in game 1. The combustion too as well. Idioms landed onto only 2 targets, but it was enough to really kind of solidify the fight in their favor. So when it comes down to the team fights, when red team presses R, they seem to get as much value as you can hope to get out of most of those initiations.
So we did see them get about 35% on their channel as they had to respond to the camp in the mid lane, and now they're back trying to defend theirs. The Blaze charge in is going to get a near full combustion out onto the Ana, but it's just Blaze. Johanna is able to basically isolate the Kerrigan and Anduin in the back line there, and the Cocoon goes out, but there's the Kerrigan combo onto Li Ming. The Crushing Jaws as well goes out, but it's Idioms that's going to go down. Anubarak did manage to finish off Thrall as the Chomp finishes off Johanna in that mud pit as well.
So, 2 really good plays, and again, it's going to be coming out from Idioms and Michael yet again. The combustion only hit 1, but he was putting a ton of pressure onto Ana, and Ana did not have the ability to focus anywhere else on the rest of her teammates, so he was splitting the team by making that aggression into it. Meanwhile, Michael lands a Cocoon onto the one target that's been burning all his Cocoons down in no time flat, which was the Li Ming. And that really opened up the rest of the aggression to come in, because once he had him out of the way, he initiated using his E onto the Ana that Blaze was working on killing. They sort out the kill, and the DPS just kind of cleaned up the rest of the fight and every other aspect of it. That was just really good setup plays. and all of the DPS did a fantastic job on the follow up. And KeyE, it got really hairy because there was definitely some counter kills looking to come in some of those fights there, and he definitely had some clutch kills in there. So all 5 players on the red team really showing up in that last team fight.
Yeah, and that's a testament to them for being able to kind of be isolated from the Johanna. But hold up, we've got 4 versus 4 here in the bot lane as Thrall Sundering will go ahead and split Anduin toward the fort. Ends up finishing him off there. The Kerrigan ultimate that I can't remember the name of, T-Pid in the backline getting some shield value. But again, like Orpheus shows up and eats Ana for breakfast. Thrall manages to get his Chain Lightnings out there, though, and get the Orphea.
So that was a really good spot by the blue team. Spoticus and Norrian realized that Key was a bit out of position. And that Sundering did a really good job in making sure that they were able to secure the kill onto him nice and early into that fight. But the turnaround actually came in really good. We got a 2-man combo from the Kerrigan, followed up very well by Michael into yet another crushing jaws from Orphea, and that's kind of how they managed to get the kill. But this was a nice play by both Siege and Spoticus there to be able to pick off that Nubrek. Realized he was too far out. He'd burned his initiation. He had no way to really escape, and they were able to just get all the damage they needed into to get to kill him off there. And that's blue team really kind of last couple plays have been clawing their way back into this game.
Yeah, and I want to highlight there that Thrall Norrian juking his mind off. I don't even know that that's an appropriate way to say that, but managing to dodge everything out of the Kerrigan combo, the Anubarak. We did see that Dragon's Arrow there kind of stalling them out from getting the boss. The stun manages to hit into Idioms there in the back line. Right now, nobody going down, but Kerrigan is very low. And going into a hallway, the Leap of Faith manages to pull her out, and the Jet Propulsion gets Idioms as well. So, once again, no kills on that fight. A good disengage from the team to be able to stay alive. And with this boss, full health, this should very well be this first keep for them.
For sure. Now, the funny thing is, we'll see, does the boss take this keep faster than the mid camp takes the mid keep?
Good point, probably.
So Norrian in a bit of trouble, but the counter damage is good, and actually pops the blaze before anything else happens in that situation. Orphea goes down. DPS here really doing a good job on the side of the blue squad. Both Siege and Randy Newman finding those situations to really burst down, and they were calling out and hitting the same targets, which really helped. Blaze has a lot of health, but if you've got 2 high damage DPS focusing all of their efforts onto that single target, it doesn't seem like it's all that much health after a little while.
Yeah, and Li Ming getting those resets certainly helped to get that extra kill as well. And we did get the dominance this time from Li Ming. So the last game she took the orbs, but this time taking that extra healing for those kills.
Well, last game Randy Newman was the one Li Ming.
Well, there you go. I didn't write down who was playing, and I don't remember the names.
Yeah, Siege was playing the Rainer, and Randy Newman.
That's right.
So, it's a little bit different playstyle because they're both playing separate heroes. I'm also going to highlight on that boss fight, like you pointed out, that Hanzo Aero was really well placed, and Spoticus was so well positioned that there was just no way for the red team to really invade. They tried to go for the flank, missed a lot of the combos. Amiona didn't have enough vision to really get anyone, and then they ended up burning crushing jaws on no one too as well. And that kind of was what turned most of that engagement into kind of a loss for them. So we can see here the red team getting a bit desperate. Michael trying to get in there and get some play. Light Bomb does go down, and it does actually land onto Johanna, but she kind of traded out. She traded right before it actually went off, which was really good play, but the isolation was good enough to actually secure the kill onto it. But I see Idioms here in big trouble. That route from Norrian was actually fantastic. And that's going to send the red team to the other side of the map here.
Yeah, and they're all very, well, not all of them, but the people that are up in the front are very low. So even though you have a 4v4, Thrall is just beefy up in this front line. and there's nothing they can do to stop this this channel, at least for right now. They're all coming back, they're healthy, they know they've got plenty of time. So I expect blue to back away. Looks like that's what they're doing here, and they do get this channel, and Li Ming tries to stall it, but just a bit outside.
I'll give him an A for effort.
Absolutely. And Hanzo looking to back right in the vision of a Nubarak. Gutsy play there.
So we're now going to get a counter channel by the red team here while Blaze comes up. But since we do have Johanna up, I expect to see red be a little bit hesitant. But since Johanna went to the bot lane kind of first, they actually had plenty of time to wait this out. Might have been a little bit of a misplay there by Spoticus, as there was no threat to chase these heroes off this point. But Blaze then also went and wasted a bunch of time in the mid lane. So now the pressure is going to come in, but we can see if they can stall this out, because they can still poke from the outside, and a really good route onto Hanzo. And in goes Michael. Light bomb goes off. They do land it onto BigGE.
He's going to go down, though, followed by Thrall and then a Nubarak as well. So this is huge. The Chomp goes out, and there goes Li Ming. And Spoticus is very low on this, but a big sleep dart into the back, followed up by that huge healing grenade. Has to get jet propulsion out, and Kurama got to run away. Kerrigan looking to see if maybe they can make a play here, as Amana realizes that Hanzo's just a juicy target, and Kerrigan can't, or I'm sorry, Johanna can't really do much to save him at that point. And we might even see her taking Johanna out.
Yeah, from the start to the finish of that fight, Kerrigan just stomped all over blue team. I mean, Kurama got some really good combo damage in there, but it was the Kerrigan pressure that was really causing problems for them. And it is the reason they come on top out of that fight with a 2-for-4 trade. Amiona really flexing there, the end of the game, or the end, kind of the end stage of this game. Very well done.
And with that cavalry, so they already got the mid keep, which was 100 health or something like that, and they're looking to pressure top with Kurama and Idioms here. They do clear up the cavalry, and the blue clears up the cavalry in the mid, so it's no longer pressuring their core. Thrall's going to finish up bot lane. I'm not entirely sure. It's going to be very close whether they'll get that bottom keep or not.
Yeah, I don't think this is end of the game quite yet. We're just getting into that stage, but we're going to see immediate rotation onto this boss. Now, they don't have very fast boss clear. Like, Kurama can clear, like, standard camps all right with Orphea, but the boss burn is not so bad. But it's sort of made up with, though, with Key, as Anduin actually, for support, this is actually quite a good amount of damage. Michael doing a fantastic job here, just honing out Spoticus, who's trying to engage through that little choke area. And really, all Michael's got to do is stand in the way. But he does able to sneak past. We see the actual flank coming in from the blue team. But Blaze dropped his combustion to try to prevent that flank from coming in. As honestly, I think he bought his team all the time they needed to actually pull out the fight here. Amiona also getting into that backline and just wreaking havoc yet again. This is such good... That was about 2 or 3 just fantastic plays by the red team to clutch out that victory.
Yeah, and at this point here, the core still has 20 armor, but you don't have the greatest siege in the world, but you do have a boss. I almost feel like at this point that they should just go tap that bottom keep for the couple hundred. But the boss isn't even attacking, he's just standing there.
Yeah, what the heck?
What is up with that?
This boss is just... They need to pull it over to the boss.
There it is, there it is.
It didn't aggro.
It's just like Alterac of old. Like, don't pull the boss out of the bunker, right? Like, you're gonna reset him, and... so that was, that was good. Absolutely fantastic play on both teams, right? They both had really good combinations. Their tanks played well, providing zoning. We mentioned that Hanzo Aero on the top boss, Michael on the later boss, trying to zone out for his team. Like, there were a lot of positives there that that really everybody on that map put together really well. And you know, I could have seen that game going either way. Even at that last boss, that last boss could have gone either way, and that could have been game in the other direction.
If that flank went the way that blue team was hoping it was going to, it absolutely would have. But Idioms made just a wonderful play. I can't say enough how much he did die, but getting that 3-man combustion completely stopped them to be able to reinforce the Spoticus and who else was up there? I think Norrian. No, Norrian was on the flank. So that was probably Spoticus and BigGE. It was 2 heroes that were up on the point trying to contest that, but they got split off primarily because of that massive combustion. And then as soon as that combustion went down, Kerrigan just went nuts and just started cleaning up the rest of the fight. But yeah, like I said, it was close even up to that point. As they probably, if they would have gotten a 5-man team wipe, even with only 1 keep down, they would have had a full health boss, and the death timers are long enough that they probably could have ended the game top lane by doing that. So it was really good. Thrall, as you could see, was able to just get a ton of work done in that game, and I think he was for sure one of the big factors for a lot of those team fights going in the favor of blue. And we had some really good synergy from Sheej and Randy Newman in a lot of late game team fights too as well.
Yep.
But yeah, that play, Idioms in both games really stood out to me in that as an offlaner. It did a fantastic job. Michael had some really good initiations and great plays. Amiona as well, as we saw on both Maev and Kerrigan in the mid and late games in particular on both sets in both matches. Really became kind of that X factor that clutched out a lot of the victories.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't we just take a couple of quick minutes here? So we've got a cycle between teams. Those are 2 matches or 2 maps, I guess, for teams, and then we're going to go to another set of teams. So we'll be back here in just a couple minutes. All right, we are back. We've got 2 new teams here. So while we wait for them to figure out who's captaining, do you want to go do a quick rundown of the roles? Do you have that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That was I thought that was a good thing to do last time. So we had on the blue side, we're gonna have Venus on tank. We're gonna have Kurama playing healer this time. So as I said before, we're seeing a bit of that role diversity coming in. Norrian is going to be back on the solo, and we're also going to see Amiona back onto the damage dealer, and then we have Miss Windup Bird, I guess, who's probably going to be taking the next slot there of the damage dealers. It was supposed to be Styxa, but it looks like we've got a bit of a sub in there. On the other side, we have I think that's Dragon 478 that's going to be playing the tank role. I think it's going to... I don't know, actually, because we got a bunch of subs here, so it's really hard to say. The only ones I know for sure is Genjisus, Night Knight are going to be ranged, and John Knight's going to be... I'm assuming the other two are playing tank and healer in some form or fashion. I don't know which ones, because, again, these don't match up with the Discord names, so I have no idea who they are.
Well, so John Knight, solo, Genjisus, Night Knight, those are the ranged. So the other 2 are tank and healer. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What are these guys doing?
We'll find out when we get into game.
I don't know what they... We're going to Infernal Shrines, everybody. That's the one thing I do know. Okay, we got 1 ready. 1 team is ready to go. They are the ones who selected the map, so of course they. Hi, it me.
Hat, I assume? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Here, you can have it. I don't care who gets the captain's hat. There you go.
I imagine John Knight might complain. We'll see.
You think so? I can put it back on John Knight. I don't care who has it.
We'll see. No one said anything.
Team 2 ready. All right, they are ready to go. So starting this up. 3, 2, 1. Alrighty then. Are you familiar with any of these players?
A few of them. Yep.
I mean, I recognize some of the names. But I haven't seen most of them play. Obviously, we just saw a couple of them play.
So we all know Weenus, of course.
Now, but you gotta get it right. You can't just call him Weenus.
The moistiest moisty wings.
You gotta say moist to make somebody feel awkward in the cast. You know, somebody in chat like, whoa.
Yeah, I've actually known John Knight one for a few years now. We first played together on a team called FML Esports all the way back in season 3 NGS. But I think that's when I first knew him from, but it might have been. And we've kind of been buddies for a while since that. In fact, when I was playing off lane, he was actually my off lane coach. So
gotcha. Right on.
I do expect him to showcase some of his skill here in this matchup.
Good deal. So we did get I don't know that anybody was asking in our chat, but we did get a bit of a response here as far as like how the teams are set up. So, you know, we didn't just throw together, people that are like master level with people who are bronze level. For the most part, these teams are relatively balanced in their MMR range, in their skill range. So, which I thought was showcased really well in that last match. While we did see the red team won both of those games, right?
Yeah, but it was damn close.
Yeah,
in both
either
games.
team could have won. Yeah, for sure. Similar bands coming out with the Avatar and the Zeratul.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you know the enemy team plays a good ABBA, it's not always a bad thing to ban, especially on maps where, you know, there is a lot of advantage that you can get from the macro. And Infernal Shrines absolutely is a map where you can really amplify the the macro into your favor. And so it looks like Dragon 478 is going to be the tank, and I'm assuming Goku is going to be playing the healer for the red team.
That makes sense. Absolutely. So we see different teams, similar bands, but we see that in Nubarak coming out, and Nubarak did get a little bit of a nerf relative to some of the other tanks, but nothing too crazy as we saw in that last game.
Yeah, I don't think it really does much to him in his spot in the meta. He's still insanely strong tank, I think.
I agree. And then we see the ETC and Jaina. So, we talked in that last game because of the Anduin about ETC, like the threat of having a Mosh. So you've got a Nubarak, which is basically like the way to counter ETC, right? Just you've got Burrow Charge, you've got Pale, you've got Cocoon, like so many different ways. So with this being such a big map, do you think this is a stage dive opportunity?
It's hard to say. Stage dive tank is one of those tough things to run because you quite often aren't going to get value out of that global ability unless you're split from the team. And since Venus is on it and he is the one playing the tank for the red team, I still think that if you're good at baiting out those stun situations, or you are making sure that you're saving your mosh pits for those opportunities where you can catch somebody that has all the stuns to stop it, it can still, the threat of mosh pit can still be very real, whether you get to cast it more than once in a game or not.
Yeah, for sure. And not only that, but you don't have to get the 5-man mosh, right? I mean, if you can get a good quality 2-man mosh that nets you a kill, then ultimately your heroic got value. Especially with having the Jaina burst as a follow-up too, because you're going to be able to do a lot of damage in a very short window of time. You don't necessarily need that full 4 seconds.
And if you're getting engaged upon pretty hard after the first stuns come out from a Nubarak Maiev, if ETC lives long enough, that's a great opportunity to just pop a defensive mosh pit and turn the fight around kind of in your favor.
Yeah, and we're going to see, with the Warden's Cage, at least I assume the Warden's Cage, a nice, convenient, centralized location for the melee. So, I mean, Sonya, Maiev, and Nubarak are probably all going to want to be in that general vicinity. So, you could see ETC take advantage of that as well.
So, we're definitely seeing a bit of, I know John Knight, for the longest time, considered himself pretty much a Sonya one-trick. So, he is really trying to showcase a bit of what he can do with picking up that hero. And we're kind of getting the same thing from Emiona on the other side, who, as we saw in the last game we just casted, can be extremely effective on that Kerrigan.
And this is one of those maps that's kind of perfect for both of those heroes, right? I mean, Kerrigan this was her map. This was the only map that she played Kerrigan on for a very long time. And Sonya has really good clear for the shrines as well. So, the kind of burst potential is a little bit more in favor of the blue team, but the sustainability out of the red team is going to make it very difficult, I think.
And I mean, Sonya has quite a bit of burst at 10 with Wrath. So if you're landing your spear, W, auto W, basically when you have Wrath up, I mean, that's enough to 1-0 almost every single hero on the side of the blue side. Like, probably the only ones that can live through tanks. And even then, ETC is vulnerable to that kind of engagement in some cases. Right. So we do still have plenty of burst, but it has to be together. And that's kind of the hard part about having all your burst centralized in your off lane, is unless the rotations from the off lane are always on point, you won't always see that value actually showing up.
And Angus in chat going to be a little bit disappointed that we didn't get an Azebo, but there's still time. So for the blue team here, we've got Kurama on the Kerosene, Ms. Windup Bird on the Jaina, Amiona on Kerrigan, Venus on the ETC, and Norrian on Imperius.
On the red side, we have Night Knight on the Gul'dan, Goku playing the Ana, Genjisus, I did say that correctly. On the Maiev, John Knight 1 on the Sonya, and Dragon 478 playing Nubrak.
I'm gonna make the mistake and call him Genjisus because of Genji.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm sure it can be both ways.
Yeah, I mean it's potato, Genjisus, Genjisus, right?
Pretty much. I used to always call them Genji just because I thought it made sense and it was funny.
Does make sense. So Anubrak's going to be the first kill here, as admittedly I didn't think anything was ultimately coming out of that fight. I thought it was just going to be a kind of a stalled kind of battle royale for a while, but they do manage to take him out there.
Yeah, he kind of stayed a little bit long and didn't manage to actually get his E off in time. Norrian and John Knight going at it in the top lane. Looking pretty even, actually, at the moment in the first salvo there.
Looked a little scary there for a moment for both of them.
Yeah, at one point it looked terrible for Norrian, and then just recently looked pretty bad for John Knight 1. But the wave clear advantage is going to be in favor of Sonya, and that's only going to get worse as the game goes on. We do have a level 7 talent from Imperius that can help with that, but it still just isn't, ever since they nerfed it, it still just doesn't really keep up with most offlaners.
Yeah, and it's still a pretty long cooldown too. It's like 30 seconds, so.
And now he's in big trouble. I mean, John Knight just almost killed him there. That was really close.
I think I'm doing a good job of making sure that we ping up to the solo laners. So
yeah, we got to remember that.
I did happen to catch that a couple times.
Good job.
So we did see here blue team capitalizing on the damage coming out of Jaina, was able to get both the mid siege camp and the bot siege camp. Gul'dan in a little bit of trouble here. Kerrigan trying to go in there, but it's going to be the tether coming out from Maiev. Genji on the Maiev, pulling him back and into that wall.
And it is Norrian that actually manages to get the first kill. So well done there in the top lane.
And Maiev realizing that he's very low is going to come up here and try to get some value out of that, but did get a little damage, but took a lot of damage as well.
Yeah, Venus has been getting some pretty good power slides actually onto those DPS. The first big one we saw ended up in a kill on a Nubrak, and the second one there almost killed Gul'dan. It was actually a pretty close thing. We're going to see the camp being taken here by the red squad there. This is a good timing. I do like this call here. Someone's making sure that those timings were good, but this is going to be a pretty fast clear with Kerrigan and Jaina, so this rotation does need to come in ASAP from the red team.
Looking at Imperius there, they were able to get him down to half, and now they're going to start moving in onto this point, but they're already halfway done.
Yeah, so they got to win a quick fight and or give this up, but here comes Genjisus, gets a 3-man tether, and just an absolute ton of value from his fan of knives. They do kill Imperius. That is also going to be Kerosene going down, Ammonia to follow that all up. Maiev just got a fantastic tether in there. Everyone just kind of piled on, and that is the perfect situation for both Gul'dan and Sonya, because they both do a significant amount of AoE damage. We're getting slam build out of Sonya, actually.
Yeah, and I believe Maiev was in that little alcove right above, right? So she just kind of hopped over the wall and
queued.
and queued the victory, right? Pulled them all together and let the team kind of. Anubrak Burrow charged in to get the stun onto 2 or 3 of them, and that was really all it took. I'm kind of surprised they didn't get the ETC kill as well, because he only had about 150, 200 health when he left.
So that top camp also got a significant amount of damage. The front wall is completely gone in that top fort. We'll have to see where the shrine decides to spawn here once the Arcane Punisher goes down. And they're getting really good value here in the bottom lane. I mean, Gul'dan does a lot of really good siege damage in the first place, and Arcane Punishers, despite the nerf, still hurt quite a bit. So red team looking in a nice position here, despite looking a little shaky early.
Yeah, and John Knight there in the top lane, electing to soak the mid lane, then go up to the top lane to deal with that camp that they have sent out. And so ultimately, no value out of the camp. They just get the XP from that, and they lose a fort. Blue loses a fort. And now we may very well see an invade, too.
Yeah, so very good focus on the macro side of things for sure for the side of the red team. We'll see if the blue team can find some ways to recover here. I think they're going to have to look for a pick, and they are looking at John Knight now. And that is a 4-man collapse onto it. But Genjisus gets a really good pull in. Actually, that return was just well timed. He did a fantastic job there. And but now he's kind of on his own. The rest of his team kind of ditched him. He kind of got left in the middle of...
Feels bad. Wow. Norrian, though, on Imperius, propping his E, trying to stay alive here, but the spin to win coming out from John Knight is going to take him out. And they didn't have Jaina.
Yeah. Feels bad, man, if you're Genjisus in that situation. All of a sudden you look around and there's no one. They're all gone. By himself.
I almost wish we were in comms to hear what happened there.
Yeah. Like, oh, you guys just left me here. The heck?
Guys, hello, you there?
They're like, well, we needed this camp. You stop feeding.
So up in the top lane, John is just bullying Kerrigan, and I'm sorry, killing Kerrigan right under the fort. But
he's gonna go down for it. But he was under the fort 2v1ing, so I'm not all that surprised that that's
no doubt. So
yeah, if you're Kerrigan, you don't want to get hit by Wrath Sonya like QW combo, especially slam build. People underestimate how much damage that this build does. It can be an absolute monstrous amount of burst.
So we do see the mana talent. I'm sorry, the mana globe talent for Jaina getting completed there. But you know, kind of an important statistic here. We're level 10, and Jaina's only got 1,600 of her chill stack damage, and that's going to be a real problem for them as they get later into this not having that ice block.
Yeah, in fact, the highest DPS is Imperius, but this is a really good engagement on Night Knight, and he's actually going to go down. They caught the Gul'dan and abused his lack of mobility, and here we go again. Blue team just showing up at certain times and managing to kind of turn some things that are looking bad into things that are looking good. But they are still sitting pretty, low on the damage side. Imperius is 14k, and pretty much nobody else on that team is above 10.
Yep. I just switched over to that. And they were able to capitalize on the red team looking to get their camp, which, of course, now they're able to clear it because of those kills. But making sure that they get that man advantage and really get value out of it. But Jen, again, is not here with them, and that's going to be a potential problem for Venus and the rest of the team here.
Yeah, I do think that was a major misplay. They won the fight, but then they didn't activate the shrine. And like you said, Jaina just walked off and started doing a bunch of other things on the map. And that gave the red team all the time in the world to get respawned and come back in onto this engagement. So despite winning what I would say is a massive victory from behind, they kind of just squandered that advantage. And the plays came out. Dragon got a really good cocoon. The fear came down, isolated some targets out. You can see Amiona doing her best to get some value on that Kerrigan and pick off Night Knight yet again. But he gets healed up and peeled out by the Anubrak and Ana combo. And I think that this is a for sure shrine going to be going to the side of the red team now.
Yeah, and especially with that talent advantage. But, take a look at that bot lane. They've already got 2 catapults down there. They've got a huge wave. And that's, I think, what Jaina was trying to do in the mid lane was to slow things down there. But, I mean, bot lane's going to be a problem here very soon. There goes the Ring of Frost. Doesn't hit anybody. The Vault Warden's keeping her safe. John Knight spinning to win in the middle there. There's the Warden Cage. Venus is in trouble, as well as Kurama trying to get out, as Jaina's going to get caught and killed there. The Cocoon goes out onto Imperius, and it's just Kerrigan left on the board, and now Imperius is probably going to die pretty quickly. So that's a full 5-man team wipe coming out for Team Red.
Yeah, John Knight was able to actually kite the Kerrigan combo and kind of dodged around a bit of that while he was sitting at about a 3rd health. And as soon as the engagement came out from his team, he was able to heal up pretty much back to full with the whirlwind. Really good micro kind of up in that top lane, and a good re-engagement from Rush's team. Anubarak leading the charge, but also Genjisus getting a nice, just a fantastic Warden's Cage in there to kind of catch everybody into a terrible position, and that is ultimately what led to that 5-man team wipe there.
So Genjisus there, staying around just a little bit longer. I think maybe he was thinking that they could take a fight there. But the rest of his team said, yeah, no, we're leaving. And you remember what happened last time when we left and you weren't? Back in that mid lane.
Exactly. But aside from that play, he's actually played a very high-octane Maya of this match.
This is a bad spot for them to be in. They're very split here, too. Imperius is going deep into the backline by himself. Zoom out.
The effect did work out, though. They weren't, they were trying to abuse the low mobility of both Ana and Gul'dan. If they could get the flank in there, then they could probably put the pressure on, maybe get themselves some kills. But they were very effectively peeled out by Dragon 478 with those stuns.
Yeah, and we've got Dragon now flanking up from below here. We'll see if he's able to get in here. ETC gonna get tethered back and pulled back. There's the Impale. Weenus in trouble. No healing, but he does get the Divine Palm. There goes the Ring of Frost and the Mosh Pit.
No! But the fear, they didn't manage to grab, or I think actually Gul'dan was caught in it initially, but I think he was cleansed out, and that actually allowed him to be able to drop that fear just enough time to stop it. Epic play by Goku getting that, or was he just on the edge and didn't?
He had to be on the edge because they don't have a cleanse. Even if you have,
they don't have a cleanse.
Yeah, even if you cleanse a stun, you can't cleanse that stun because as long as you're in it, you're going.
That makes sense. Okay, so yeah, he was just right on the edge. So very good play by Night Knight. He managed to stay just out of range, drop the fear rate immediately, and that saved his team from actually taking some a crazy amount of damage. Because it was a good combo. That the Mosh Pit and the Ring of Frost follow-up were all there, and things started to look kind of scary for the red team in that moment.
So Night Knight was in the Ring of Frost, but he wasn't in the Mosh Pit, and the Ring of Frost was just slightly outside of it. I just saw it come back up on the stream, so I figured I'd watch that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so that was a pretty solid showing out of the red team. They had a lot of value there, like a lot of showcase plays. The blue team struggled a little bit, for sure, but there were definitely some solid plays out of them as well. The kill count 7-14, a little bit obviously in favor of the red team, but it felt like the red team was just more in tune, and maybe that's because some of these people have played together. I mean, I'm assuming John and Night Knight have played together, for example. As opposed to the blue team, which kind of seemed to be.
I think he coached a team Night Knight was on.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure that was what their relationship actually is. So, but yeah, it was definitely a bit more coordinated overall. And I think that the caliber of players that you got in there. Genjisus though was really showing some fantastic plays on that Maiev, and he set up so much of that AOE group up. Everything you want to see a Maiev do, he managed to be able to pull off throughout the game, and I think that made a major impact. But Night Knight got a really good fear in too as well in a couple of those situations that really helped the team fight go their way. Amiana looks scary on Kerrigan in just much like she did in the first game, but the rest of the support just wasn't quite there, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty close on some of those fights, and if that ETC mosh is half an inch to the right, then that's a full team wipe in the other direction. Right?
Yeah, I mean it was really that close. It was basically if Gul'dan was caught in that mosh pit, they were in trouble.
Yep. So we're gonna go to Alterac Pass for the next one. I feel like we've been here recently.
Wonder why.
Let's see. Amiana's on the other team. Norrian. Which team was Norrian on? Do you remember?
He's on the right side or left side. Sorry. Goku's on the right.
Goku's on the right, yeah. Right,
So we're just
Dragon,
missing one person
Goku,
apiece.
Genji on the right, and Ms. something or other, Ms. Wind-Up Bird. Swap team. Alright, so that's all looking right. Let's see if Miss Wind-Up Bird is somewhere in this that I can tag. I see MSB Chris. Oh, there she is. Invite to game. There we go. Alrighty, so we did have a shout out from Angus saying that blue team's gonna win this next game.
We always like those equalizers. See if the macro is a little bit better. I think that was part of the issue in the last run more than anything was the fact that Miss Wind-Up Bird, you know, felt like a bit of a misplay that she wasn't in those major team fights and was split. But like you pointed out, what else could they do? All those lanes were pushed up and they didn't have any wave clear on any of their other heroes. So it kind of fell on her to deal with it.
Right.
And that's more of a draft compositional issue than necessarily a player error.
Right. And because of that, it made it very difficult for Jaina to get her chill stacks, which meant that she didn't have the ice block for later in the game, and it just kind of all compounded. So
kind of almost like the first game we casted where Kurama was struggling with Sylvanas to get the stacks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mostly because the team, you know, she wasn't able to be available in those team fights.
Right. Well, and they didn't even really have many team fights.
Yeah, exactly.
In that first game.
And so she had to split a good portion of the time on the map.
Yep. All right. Looks like maybe Team 4 is ready to go. So Team 3 is ready. Team 4 hopefully is ready. Hopefully soon.
So it's good to point out that both John Knight1 and Kurama are the ones kind of handling the captain side of things, and that generally indicates that they're the ones kind of handling a bit of the drafting too as well, and could even be potentially calling a lot of the shots. And that's something to kind of point out, especially if you're scouting for new players, because those are the things that you don't see in the game because you can't hear the comms. You don't know how the conversation's going for each of the drafts. And those can be significant factors when trying to build a new team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems like the most difficult positions for people to fill are like solo lane. You've got your shot caller, whoever's gonna, fill that role, and then tanks. I think are kind of the second. At least the experience that I've seen from people is that the solo.
I think
lane
good tanks are the rarest things that you can find here in NA.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I guess the qualifier of good does make it a little bit more difficult.
For sure, yeah.
So
let's use experience tank.
There you go. I like that. So while we're waiting on the bands to repeat from last round, so Ziltoid, what are your a couple of your top played heroes in NGS specifically?
Last season, majority of what I played was Zeratul, Sylvanas, Raynor, and Hanzo.
Gotcha. Some of which you would not be able to play if they were letting you play in this match.
Yeah, basically, and that ended up being kind of my experience throughout the playoffs too, as well, where I pretty much never got my front two, which was Sylvanas and Zeratul.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's just basically not allowed to play it except for VMS because they drafted ways to deal with Zeratul when they let me have it. So it was a bit of a rough situation there. But yeah, those have kind of been what I've been maining for the most part. But I've been trying to expand that hero pool out to be a little bit more inclusive. I do play other things, but at the same level that I play Zeratul and Sylvanas, I'm still kind of playing catch up with a lot of my other heroes.
Sure, yep. Let me take a look here. So there is... Alright, so there is a 3 and 4 at 11, but there's no 5 and 6. So if we run a little bit late, I think we can just tell Slexia to have those teams use 5 and 6.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm just going to say that right now. So you talk while I reach out to board.
No problem. So we're going to see Dahaka picked up on Alterac Pass. I like this. There is enough bushes to get good global value, and macro is a focus on this map. That's something I really like to see, generally speaking. We haven't seen Norrian on it yet, so this will be a nice showcasing of whether he has... Wait, no, that's incorrect. We saw him in Cursed Hollow, and I believe his macro focus was actually quite good. And it's definitely something that I like to see. We're going to see a main tank Blaze with a Sylvanas. Now, Sylvanas on this map in particular is quite strong with the camps. With Mercenary Queen, you can really get a ton of value out of that mid-push camp. 20 armor plus a 60% bonus increase with Mercenary Queen makes Sylvanas just absolutely devastating with that mid-camp. So if that's leveraged properly, it can be just a really good pick.
Yeah, for sure. And not only that, but I mean, at that point, you could just push with that Merc Queen. You can just push the lane while they're off getting one of the tributes. And in 3 tributes, you get more value out of those than they will from a curse, potentially.
We are on Alterac Pass.
Yes. What he said. I would like to echo all of the statements that were previously made by my good friend Ziltoid here about how much value Sylvanas brings to this map.
Also, what's nice about Sylvanas is because we talked about this before in our previous set. The objective increases movement speed and damage. And when you combine that with the ability to turn off buildings... It's just broken.
Yeah, it's an absolutely crazy amount of damage. And we are going to see Genjisus playing Genji.
I mean, if you're going to have that kind of name...
You got to do it, right?
You better play Genji. Some point. So he's going to bring it out here, and they're going to cover the macro, mostly with the Johanna and the Jaina pick. And I like making sure that there's coverage. Making sure that you have enough wave clear in your 4-man to kind of to allow Genji to do what he needs to do, which is roam and gank. Is pretty much what he does nowadays.
So Kurama's switching over there to the Brightwing.
Double
and then
global
we see more Li Ming.
on Alterac. I struggle with double global on this map in some ways. Now it's pretty good because the lanes are so far out, and you can really maximize that macro value. But I always struggle with Brightwing and her global, because if teams abuse the fact that it takes her time to teleport in, and they have enough burst damage, which with Thrall, Jaina, Genji, they absolutely do, you're quite often going to be showing up late to the fights after someone has already been blown to hell.
I don't think they took Brightwing for the global. I think they took Brightwing for the poly on Genji.
Makes sense.
Because I don't know who else they specifically would be looking to take to counter the Genji with this team, right? Do you want to throw out an Uther? Uther's kind of lost favor in general. He's got
I honestly think Uther would have been like a 200 IQ play.
Yeah, it's
Jaina Genji. He's actually perfect.
Right, you can help to counter the burst. With that 25 armor that he has. It's just those really long cooldowns. But they also don't have any real significant sustained damage like the Gul'dan and Sonya that they had out of that.
No, they straight up have Thrall, and that's about it. Like the rest of it is, and even Thrall is not like great sustain. Like he's got okay. So yeah, I honestly, I think you're right. I think the Brightwing was mostly to deal with the Genji aggression. But Uther, I think, would have been a awesome draft. But again, we're not here to just to pick apart all the drafts. I mean, Uther's just not something that Kurama likes to play. So right wing is what it is, and that's what he feels strong on. So we'll see how he goes. Go ahead and introduce Blue. We talked too long
already. Yeah, so we've got Miss Windup Bird on the Li Ming, Norrian on Dahaka, Venus on the Blaze, Amiona on Sylvanas, and Kurama on... I said Kurama on the Brightwing. No, I didn't. Kurama on the Brightwing. Your turn.
Dragon 478 on the Johanna. We have Genjisus on Genji. We have John Knight 1 playing the Thrall. Night Knight on the Jaina and Goku playing Toronto.
So there's that Blaze stun onto Genji as well as to Johanna. So right in that mid lane. The one thing about these lanes, at least in the mid lane, it's obviously a little bit harder on the bottom and top, but it's so narrow. So your jet propulsion stun is going to hit somebody and also hit others because of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm also going to point out here that the red team does also have Tyrande in this mix-up. And, any amount of Blessed Shield and follow-up stun into burst damage is going to be a death onto pretty much any hero in this composition. So, the cleanse might actually be, and also, a pretty integral thing too as well. And Kurama's definitely going to need to be on point with that if that combo ever does kind of come out.
So we do see the Might of the Banshee Queen at level 1 for Sylvanas, so a little bit different than we saw earlier here. And we see the Endurance Stim Pack from Blaze as well, so it's going to give him that shield as opposed to something like the New Habits or the other one that I don't remember the name of. So no Unstoppable for Blaze today.
An odd choice on the tank roll, because that stun deny is pretty strong on the hero, but I haven't really even seen the shield talent taken in who knows how long.
Yeah, and it is kind of surprising when you consider that they're going against a Johanna, Tyrande, Jaina, right, and Thrall. I mean, there's a lot of potential lockdown there for them to, even lock down the tank and just slaughter the tank. So we'll see.
Really good stun on it, though, by Venus. He was able to pick that out. He's got almost no mana, though, so he's going to probably have to back out here, or he's going to die. And, in fact, he refuses to retreat, and things are looking kind of scary for him. One more dash from Genji, and he might die.
Yeah, he's...
But, in fact, it's Goku, desperate to get that kill, who almost takes a full Li Ming combo to the face.
Yeah, I think he's lucky, because I think Genji's Swift Strike was, a couple of seconds away there because he used it earlier, but... That was an easy swift in and swift out if you're a good Genji player.
Well, I'm liking that it's Sylvanas. Took both Might of the Banshee Queen and Mercenary Queen as well, as that's kind of my opening build as well, and I also go into the next Q talent after that. As it becomes an absolute monster of a sustained damage build, and it's Amiona on this actually. Okay, so that makes sense. Kurama is on, or it isn't even. Okay, I got myself confused because of the last set.
Right.
Right. So Miss Wind-Up Bird is playing the Li Ming. It's Amiona on the Sylvanas.
So we did see Dahaka come in here, and both teams already very low, but it's going to be Goku on Tyrande that's going to go down first, and Jaina's very close, but Sylvanas not quite able to finish that. Li Ming almost does with a big orb onto the wall. Gets Genjisus John Knight very low. Was looking for that reset. Could have had 2 kills with just a little bit more damage.
Yeah, it looks like Dragon 478 almost got that channel, and I think he's going to die for it, though.
Yup.
Pretty scary situation there. Venus is super low, though, but I don't think we're going to see any aggression coming out from the side. The point I was trying to make with the Sylvanas earlier was that I'm surprised that they weren't using Sylvanas to push out that mid lane, especially with the fact that they took Mercenary Queen. So I'm waiting to see if that ends up being kind of the strategy going forward here after the first objective.
So Thrall's almost done with his Echo of the Elements, 18 out of 20. Jaina again a little bit behind here, only about 2,400 damage. But again, I mean, once we get up to 10, it can be real easy to stack that. Norrian up in trouble at the top lane though, with 4.
A lot of pressure being put on by the 4-man. I assume they feel that this is an okay rotation as they have that mid camp pushing out in the mid lane that should buy them enough time to be able to clear up this top lane and then make that mid rotation before anything significant happens. But one thing you have to remember with Sylvanas, if she has Merc Queen, she can just turn off those mercenaries, and it actually doesn't end up being any kind of delay for you. In the
yeah, basically, and you don't lose any damage on your cavalry at all. So they're electing to go ahead and pull back here instead of pushing on with the mid mid fort here. Cavalry in the bot lane is maybe going to get one tower. Overall, a very different circumstance from what our first game had, where, you know, we had a fort down and pretty significant structure down in other lanes as well. And they're approaching level 10.
Yeah, blue team definitely making some strides. I think a bit of that is the composition, and a bit of it was that fight over that objective is kind of set the red team a little bit behind here. But they're definitely going to be making strides to see if they can kind of turn things around here. As you know, the DPS pairing and even Thrall for that matter do take a little bit of time to kind of scale up, as they become significantly more effective once they actually have their ultimates accessed.
So Angus in chat calling out that Ms. Windup Bird is a scary Li Ming. So we've definitely seen some of these Li Ming combos just melting the enemy team. So, you know, keep an eye out for that, because I expect that as we get later in the game, and it is so far at least a full orb build Li Ming. So, you know, the poke coming out of Li Ming is going to be massive burst when we get onto these team fights over the cavalry.
And we kind of have a solo tank, you know, with Thrall has a lot of self-sustain, but he doesn't have a huge health bar, which does make him somewhat vulnerable to that Li Ming burst. However, we'll see what the level 13 talents go, because whenever I run into a situation like this on Thrall, I usually just take the spell armor. And they do manage to pick off Venus and Amiona there, but they do trade out Goku in the process for it.
And a big Heroes of the Storm spray coming out, rank 1. Love to see it. So yeah, in the top lane we had the Dahaka v Johanna. Not typically your expected solo lane setup, but I guess they felt that Thrall just wasn't doing very well against Dahaka, maybe?
Or it might just be that Thrall's matchup into anyone else they throw into him is just that much better.
Okay, fair.
So if you've got Thrall versus Dahaka, the lane will mostly stay neutral. Or if you have Thrall versus pretty much anybody else on their team, it's not so neutral. We do see the flank coming in from Norrian as well, and he does pop Possessance, so he's going to stay alive. And Johanna was definitely isolated on the enemy team side of the map, and that's kind of that pitfall that I was talking about in the first set, where you have to be careful about aggressing onto the enemy team's side of the map, especially when they've got so much long-range poke. You have to walk through these zones where you're almost guaranteed to give up pressure and damage, and even tanky heroes like Johanna are often going to suffer in those situations, and we saw that was the case.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Johanna's a solo tank in this, right? So you don't have the option of having somebody else kind of cover the backline for you. So, you know, they were kind of lucky that the Dahaka didn't get more value than it could have, certainly. There goes the Thrall Earthquake. Genjisus, very low in the backline, is able to kind of back away. But Night Knight's going to get caught by the combustion. It's going to go down. The X-Strike onto Ms. Windup Bird and Amiona is enough to take those two out as well as a Brightwing in the back there.
So Genjisus and John Knight 1 just completely turned that fight. They found their way, because of how deep Venus was in, they didn't have any peels for the backline, and Dahaka was kind of isolated up here in this top corner, and he was not able to actually get in to stop those two squishes there on the bottom there from getting completely destroyed by Genji. And because they were zoned out, both Brightwing and Dahaka were zoned out by John Knight 1 and Dragon 478. But the objective does go to the blue team yet again. Though the experience lead is now in favor of the red team. So as we kind of move into the late game here, Jaina now has Icy Veins, and that's going to be a significant amount of burst damage that she's going to be able to apply in the rest of these team fights going forward. So we'll see kind of how it matches up, but that was just some fantastic play by those two heroes in that team fight that really kind of made it go in their favor.
Well, there goes that big jet propulsion, followed up by the combustion. The Emerald Wind from Kurama was interrupted, so she still has that. as they do get 4 kills out of that huge play. And you were just talking about the tanks there for a second, and Dahaka and Brightwing being kind of isolated, which is quite literally what we were just talking about on the other side with Johanna, right?
Yeah.
You get too far in, and then you expose something, and the other team is able to capitalize on that, and you don't want a Genji running around your backline.
No, not at all. But, you know, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Venus goes for the same play, lands a 4-man combustion, and then all you had was Wailing Arrow, remorselessness damage, because we are at level 13, and this build is just devastating when it comes down to grouped up team fights, as it increases Sylvanas' attack range by 1, and it bounces at a range of 8 to any nearby heroes, which is just devastating. But here is the counterfight, and this is just going back and forth, both sides just brawling it out, but Amiona looking to see if she can just come in here and trade this out. Genji is going to go down, but it is going to be a 2-for-3 trade at this point, and the resets coming in for Miss Windup Bird. They're actually going to put Night Knight and John Knight in kind of a bit of an issue, but a good Ring of Frost to zone themselves out. Essence being burned by Norrian. Johanna went back. She's now at full health, and I think that blue team needs to get out of dodge here, as a full health Johanna and a half health Thrall could still very much kill those 2 heroes in the top lane.
Yeah, for sure. So, really good fight there from those teams, just slightly more in favor of Red, right? They had the 2 deaths and Blue had 3, right?
It plays on both sides. I mean,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
the initialization from the front lane was fantastic from the Red team, including the follow-up from Genji. Just made a huge play there to get all that pressure. But then the return damage coming in from Amiona on that Sylvanas was just devastating to watch, and you could just see Red team's health bars just die, just drop to nothing. And that's the perfect situation for Li Ming as you can get the resets in. I think had Miss Windup Bird just had been positioned a little bit more aggressively off of that Genji kill, she probably could have chained that into 2 or 3 more kills onto Night Knight and John Knight in that situation, but was just unfortunately out of range to be able to get that to work out.
So Dahaka is in the bot lane working on this bottom fort. Blessed Shield gets missed though. There's the big jet propulsion in as Thrall and Johanna get stunned. Rooted onto Venus though as the X-Strike hits the Brightwing, bringing Brightwing very low. And a big stun back onto Johanna. There's the Dahaka burrow in and all up in the back line there, as the same issue we talked about earlier with Johanna being so deep left the team exposed to that. There's that ice block coming out from Night Knight, so finishing that 15k not long ago, but managing to survive because of that. And that big orb from downtown, that orb build Li Ming manages to chunk down the Tyrande, get her low enough for the follow-up and reset for Li Ming.
Yeah, and I mean, and as long as Sylvanas has all of that time to just sit there and kind of levy out auto attacks without any contest, it's it does a devastating amount of damage, and that's why the health bars we constantly see are just always hovering around half. They're just not able to stay out there, and yeah, Johanna going down early it was a problem because you don't have the blinds to at least try to mitigate a bit of that. And it's just so much damage to deal with, and then you've got Li Ming just able to kind of take all those quarter health, third health heroes and turn them, into combos, into kills. So it looks like we're gonna get yet another objective here, and I think the red team's getting a little bit desperate because another objective here is almost certainly the end of the game.
Yeah, and they've got both of those keeps down, but Johanna's going to go and gets that Blessed Shield, pulls the Condemn in. The Emerald Wind is just barely going to keep Brightwing alive as they start channeling, and now Genji goes down, but they do get the channel.
Yeah, I wonder if that's still a good... Yeah, I still wonder. That might actually be an okay trade. In fact, this might turn desperately in favor of the red team. And again, this lane isn't going to end the game, even despite the fact that they do have 2 keeps down. So they are going to be able to channel this, although Night Knight just taking way too much damage from Li Ming there. This is the one issue with Li Ming on this map. is she can just, as long as Fort is still up, can just sit here and siege this in. And it's actually why in my games I have such a high priority in trying to get this front wall down at the very minimum early in the game, so that you don't have this situation where Li Ming can just sit there and shell you from over the wall.
I'm not entirely sure what Dahaka was doing. I missed that as I was watching the Li Ming play there. But 1v basically 4 and just kind of throwing his life away. Not even close enough to have been trying to go sneak the camp, because of course it's only 2 seconds left, you know, and people forget all the time that it's not one or the other. You can have both of the camps going at the same time. So if you have the capability to sneak in behind and sneak that camp for that last, you know, second or two, you know, you can really make a play there. But there's goes the Blessed Shield. It's 4v5 here, so not necessarily the best fight for blue team, but they do get the kill onto the Genji, and maybe even the Jaina. There's the ice block, very low. The jet propulsion misses though. 10 health on that Jaina. Walk away. Holy cow. And now Dragon getting that damage coming from Sylvanas, but it's, you know, it's Johanna. She walks away from everything.
Mostly everything, at least in this matchup for sure.
Yeah, unless she's really deep in the enemy team and her entire team is on the other side of the map.
Yeah, the red team was really trying their best to get value out of that Dahaka kill, but I feel like they got a little too desperate. They had plenty of time there to actually screen out and channel, but instead they went for the fight and overextended a bit and ended up kind of losing the Genji, dropping the Ring of Frost, and kind of overall but just putting themselves into a negative position on that fight. And the blue team did a really good job in kiting them back. Again, we've been seeing this actually quite a bit from them this whole match, where they kind of bait them into an area where Miss Windup Bird can just constantly get that orb damage onto the squishy targets. And so, it converts it into basically into an objective win right there.
And not just an objective win, this could very well be the game unless they're able to clear out this camp, clear out these cavalry very quickly. The lanes are very much pushed up, and, you know, we talked earlier about how one lane doesn't really pose that much of a threat to you in this on this map, but 2 lanes certainly does. Two
and
lanes
3 for sure. And they're gonna have 3 here before this game is over. Desperate defense here for the red team.
Yeah, so Venus charging in onto the Johanna, and there goes the Earthquake coming from Thrall. The Lunar Flare does miss, and the Ring of Frost also. So Venus gets off some combustion damage there. Silence goes out. And Dahaka's deep in on the core, trying to get damage, trying to keep things moving there. And here comes the second cavalry. So the core now, with no armor, is just melting to the cavalry, to the wave of minions, and the blue team is saying that's fine. We'll throw our bodies at it, and they'll go ahead and win that game. So.
Yeah, despite that, you know, very good team fight on the core from the red team, it just wasn't enough to stop 3 lanes of pressure with the objective. It's pretty much as soon as that objective was converted, it was over. But it was a very close match. Again, no distinct, you know, stronger players in, you know, either one of these games. We had a really good game from. You know, in game 1 from the red team, where they kind of were able to secure some early advantages and run away with it. And in this one, we saw the power of, you know, of what happens when you kind of get baited into overextending onto the enemy team's side of the map. And blue team just abused that over and over and over again. The Sylvanas damage was, you know, outclassed everyone else's by a significant margin. And Li Ming wasn't too far behind, you know, with 66,000 as the second highest damage dealer. And I think that was kind of the big story, is they were all that burst damage couldn't get onto the appropriate targets or kill things fast enough before all that return damage from the Sylvanas and Li Ming basically started killing people.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, that was an absolute, you know, just crazy matchup to watch between both of these teams. You know, the red team did really well in game 1, and the blue team came back and did really well in game 2. They both showcased their talents well. There was a lot of flexibility on both teams. So if you guys are out there watching are looking for somebody to fill in a spot, take a look at these players, talk to them, reach out to them, and get those teams. Don't forget your signups are due, I believe, by the 16th. Does that sound correct to you, Ziltoid?
I think so, yeah.
So make sure that you reach out to these guys, get a tryout in with them as soon as possible here. There's not a whole lot of time left. My camera went back to not working, so go figure. So Ziltoid, is there any final thoughts that you want to throw out to chat or the players as they come back and watch us here later?
Out of all 4 games that we casted, I thought we saw some just fantastic showcasing of skill. Like, on both sides of the map, in every single one of the maps, there was plays being made across the board. So, watch these, rewatch these, take a look and see who you think really sends to mesh with what you're looking for in the teams that you're trying to put together, because it would be an absolute shame for this year's pool of free agents to go unsigned. I mean, they're all really good. In that last matchup, we had some big power players like John Knight 1, but we also had things like Genjisus, who just came out and played 2 fantastic games. We had Amiona, who looked unstoppable on not only Sylvanas, but the Kerrigan and even the Maiev on her own side. We saw Norrian play some fantastic off lane as well. Just all of those players really showcasing their skill, and I really would like to see them, be picked up and be playing in the next season of NGS, because they absolutely deserve to be on some teams here.
I 100% agree with you. I have nothing significant to add on to that. It's late. I'm tired. We casted
Agreed.
for 2 hours here. So, good deal. So, Ziltoid, where can they find you on the interwebs? PS Ziltoid, or twitch.tv/PS Ziltoid. I'm mainly casting. I also do the Nexus Edge during the season, and will be streaming here very shortly as well on my own Heroes of the Storm plus other games. If you're interested in that, please come into the channel, follow, subscribe, like, whatever you want to do. I have my YouTube channel as well, which I link to it, which is actually under my actual name, which is Jonathan Hansen. Everyone needs to know now. All the identity thieves, here you go. Here's my information. I'll start with my address and phone number. Okay, anyways.
Stop!
Going from there. I'm also on Twitter at PS Ziltoid, so you can catch me there. And then, of course, in Discord, if you ever want to chat, just hit me up. I'm always around.
All right, good deal. And I'm Aero. You can catch me at twitch.tv/Aero of the Storm, or on Twitter occasionally at Warrior Aero. And then, of course, hanging out in the Division chats inside of Discord. I think that's it for us tonight. There are a couple of other matches. Slexia has a match going on her channel. Bahamut is continuing to run the gauntlet over there at Bahamut Gaming. So check these out. There's going to be a lot more games for you to go back and watch if you didn't catch them already on Bahamut's channel, on Ragnarok's channel, on Mark Zombie's channel, on the Nexus Gaming Series channel, and on Slexia's channel. So there are a lot of free agents out there to check out. So make sure you do so. Ziltoid, it's been a pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful night. And everybody out in Chatland, get out of here. Go watch another game.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. We should do this again sometime.
Absolutely.